Dark Souls the board game. This is your review for 2. Good day, my name is Joe Gerba. Today I'll be going over Dark Souls the board game and how it plays with 2 players. Now Dark Souls is a 1 to 4 player game based on the video game Dark Souls and the whole Souls franchise. Essentially it's a dungeon crawler where you'll be going room to room, flipping over a card, fighting over the enemies in that room, and gaining souls. Now it's kind of a push your luck, is you can go as far as you want to before returning back to the bonfire to level up or potentially get more gear. And eventually you beat a mini boss, set up the whole board again in a different sort of fashion for the main boss, and if you can beat that, you win the game. So let's see a little bit more how to play. So at the beginning of the game, each of the characters is going to choose one of the archetypes. You know, the herald, the knight, the warrior, the assassin, and each one will have its own set of starting gear and base stats. You'll also shuffle the different gear that you'll be able to get throughout the game in this large deck. Now, as you go through the game, you want to be getting souls by clearing out rooms and then coming back to level up your character. Your character starts with this kind of base strength, dexterity, intelligence, and faith. And to wield some of these better items, you'll have to level those up as well. So it may take you some souls to get some gear and some souls to level up your character. As you be going across the board, each one you'll know, once you reveal a card, you'll know what it is for the rest of the game until you beat that mini boss or boss at the end. So there's going to be 4 rooms in between the bonfire and the boss you'll have to go through. But every time you'll know exactly what to expect in every room. Now you can go a different route sometimes to get to the mini boss to avoid something, or if you know exactly where some of these are going to spawn, you know if you can beat that room if it's a little bit of hard room. So it's kind of like the actual game where you kind of learn by doing. Now in this game, like I said, you'll reveal, you'll put them on there, and then the enemies will get to go first, and then you'll take your turn. It's an interesting mechanic. This is a mechanic that I like. When you take damage, you'll fill your bar from right to left, and as you use your stamina, you'll fill from left to right. And hopefully those don't meet in the middle, because if they do, your character is out and you drop all your souls. So it's kind of a neat balancing mechanic between the 2 bars that you have. Now once the enemies go, you'll get to go and move 1 space or move 2 and exert some energy and get to attack. And these custom dice, they'll level up kind of with you, the different colors as you get better gear, and hopefully you beat the room, they drop some souls, you get to gather. And like I said, it's a push your luck. If you really think you've taken a lot of damage over the last couple rooms, you can always go back to the bonfire and rest up. And then once you do get to the mini boss room, the mini boss has a certain move set they're going to do, and that's kind of interesting where these cards are never shuffled. They're just once you see what kind of order, once you see what kind of move set the boss has, you'll be able to predict what they're going to do and potentially dodge out of the way. So that's kind of the basic overview of the game. There's a lot more to the game. There's chests in the rooms. There's different skills you can do on some of the items, some of the weapons. And like I said, there's some of these one-time use per run kind of things, but it's essentially just a dungeon delver. You have, 5 times to go through this, and hopefully by the end you can get that mini boss and claim victory and then move on to the big boss. So let's see a little bit more what I thought about the game. Now the components in this game, I will say the components in this game I actually like quite a bit. Yes, it is kind of a miniature. They don't give you a ton of basic different mobs throughout, but they do give you plenty of mini bosses and bosses to fight. The rules, I will admit as well, I thought they were pretty straightforward. I enjoyed the rules. There wasn't too much reference, issues I had when we played. We played a couple years ago now, and then we played last week, so definitely easier to pick up for the second time. Setup will take you a little bit of time. There's a lot of tokens, a lot of cards, a lot of miniatures, a lot of things to set up. So I'd plan for, 15, 20 minutes just to set up this game. The table size of this game, the table size you could barely probably fit on a 3x3 with 2 people. It was kind of a tight fit, but we were able to do this in one of the back rooms that we had. Now let's talk about the gameplay. This has one of my least favorite mechanics that could be in a game, and it's that the enemy gets to go first. So one of my things I dislike the most in games is not being able to strike first, not being able to set up anything. And for a board game where you're really going to be playing against some harder things, stepping into the room, us placing our characters on the board and then watching the enemies immediately chunk off pieces of our health was really disheartening, to say the least. The same thing happens with too many bones. That's my one big gripe about too many bones is, you don't get to do anything before the enemy gets its first turn. And, some people like that. This is supposed to be a punishing game, but not being able to set up, not being able to do anything before the opponent's goes really puts a sour taste in the mouth. These enemies are tough, especially if you're playing 1 or 2 players. You're not going to be knocking out all the enemies probably in one turn. And what's even a little bit more odd is all the enemies go, then one person goes, then all the enemies go again, and then the next person goes. So in a 2-player game, that second person could die before they even get a turn. And to me, that's a sign. That's another red flag in the game as far as fun goes. In 2 players, you don't start off with any souls. In a 1-player game, you do get 16, so you do get to kind of build up your character a little bit before. But in a 2-player game, you start off with the basic gear, and they kind of say, "Go at it." You can die in the second room, never make it back to get your souls, and the game's over. So, to me, the game never kind of picks up, never gets rolling, and that's a real big downside, I think, about this game. Now, a couple things I do like about this game. Like I said, it has a really neat health and stamina mechanic. If they meet in the middle, your character dies, but you can really kind of manage both of them with some of your items, some of your once per run events. I like the stats, the stat requirements. You need certain stats to wield some of these weapons, which I think is really neat. You do share souls between the players, which is a little bit disheartening. Everybody can't choose what they're going to do themselves, which I don't like as much. There's also a all or nothing dodge mechanic, which you can also do. So if you roll enough dodges, you ignore all the damage, unlike shields where however much you don't block, that's how much damage you take. There's a couple neat mechanics in this game, but there are things that just hold this game back. This deck that you can get items from, you could spend souls looking through this thing and not get anything that can help you. You just don't know how the character building is just kind of odd in a 2-player game. The combat just feels it feels very punishing in a non-forgiving way. I don't know. It's tough for me to find a whole lot of light at the end of the tunnel. I know this game is supposed to be hard, but to me, for 2 and possibly 1, but 1 may be more fun, but for 2, the gameplay itself just isn't much fun. So let's talk about replayability. I do think they give you a decent amount in the box. They give you plenty of mini bosses and bosses in the box. They give you plenty of cards to mix things up. They give you 4 heroes. What they don't give you a whole lot of these henchmen and minions, which you'll be fighting quite a bit in between. So the replayability is high, but you're going to be seeing a lot of the same minions on the way to the boss quite a bit. In true Dark Souls fashion, though, once you clear a room and you want to go back to it after you've rested the bonfire, you have to beat and set up that room all over again. Repeating the same process, just doesn't hit in the board game fashion like it does with the video game. Let's talk about luck versus strategy. This is a dice rolling game. You know what you need to roll, and if you just don't, it's so punishing. You just don't have enough. I like this mechanic down here, but it's so, it almost feels like there's not enough spaces to really get you that ebb and flow of health versus stamina. If you roll a couple blanks and you take 5 damage, that's half your whole bar gone. It really feels bad in this game. So this can come down to luck. There are ways to mitigate it, but man, the luck versus strategy, as good as your strategy may be, it all still comes down to a decent amount of luck. One of the least things I like in a lot of these games are when there's blanks on a dice and it doesn't give you anything. There are some of these die that don't have a blank, and I think that's neat, but the starting ones for sure, these black die have blanks, and man, it feels terrible to roll those. So is this game good for 2? And me personally, this is my opinion, so take it as you will. Hopefully that's why you're watching, to get somebody else's opinion. I think this game is terrible at 2. This game, just for me, isn't very much fun with 2 players. Walking into the room, watching one person get smashed, then one person gets a move and an attack action, and the next person gets smashed. Man, it just doesn't feel good. It doesn't play well. At the very beginning of the game, you don't get to upgrade, don't get to build anything. You get what you get, and hopefully your characters kind of synergize and you get a little bit of ball rolling. Maybe you can clear 1 or 2 rooms, get some souls, kind of level up. But at 2, this game just doesn't feel fun. Now, with 1 player, at least you start off with 16 souls, so you can level up your character a little bit. You can go through this deck to try to get some loot cards before you start. You can kind of plan it out, but as a 1-player solitaire game, I can see kind of liking it. It will take you longer than the 60 to 90 minutes if you really deep dive into this game, and you really have to want to set up the board every time with the same card. With 1 player, I think you get 5 playthroughs of the exact same boards, so you have to want to do that repetitive nature. And in a board game, setting up the board the same way over and over can get kind of monotonous. So I don't want to say too much negative about this game, but I just I'll kind of leave it as I really don't like it for 2, and I'm not really the biggest fan of 1, but if you're going to play this, I would say play Dark Souls with 1. With 2, we got this quite a bit, just you died, and it just kind of felt bad. We didn't feel good playing the game. There was no really feel-good moments. You make it to the mini-boss, and you get kind of shellacked, and you want to like the mini-boss kind of mechanic, but getting there is the real slog. So that's kind of my review on Dark Souls. Sorry it wasn't a positive review, but this is, like I said, it's my opinion, my review. You may have a different opinion, but for those of you on the fence, especially for 2, unless you like the punishing games where the bad guys will be hitting you first and there's not a whole lot you can do, I'd save your money and maybe look into a couple other dungeon divers. So that's kind of my review on Dark Souls. Hope you guys enjoyed the review, and until next time.